Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
Hello, and you are very welcome to this week's episode of Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103. I'm your host, Aisling O'Rourke, and I'm delighted to be back on air for 2026. My thanks to Zoe Ryan, who took over while I took some holidays over Christmas for a bit of relaxation and to mark a bit of a big birthday. So, you know, we all need a bit of time off every now and then, but I'm excited to be back and looking ahead to the year to come. Now, we've an interesting project in Offaly to kick us off with, and we're joined by Biodiversity Officer for Offaly County Council, Whelan. Wiki, Happy New Year and welcome back to Let's Go Green.
Happy New Year, Ashley. Thanks very much for having me.
Now, a bat roost, Ricky, what is it and what's it for?
Yeah. So bats, people will sometimes see them on summer's evenings and warm spring evenings and stuff, and right into the autumn, flying around and foraging for insects in their gardens or their farms or over the road or whatever. So, but when they're not foraging during the day, because they're nocturnal animals, they're roosting, and they go and basically sleep or just rest in a structure. Sometimes there's natural structures like maybe a hollow tree. Often it's attic spaces or old abandoned buildings, and a lot of the time it's just in the masonry of old buildings where mortar has fallen out or whatever. They'll just squeeze in there. So we actually have only one species of bat that hangs upside down in this country, and that's the lesser horseshoe bat. And all their populations in Ireland are actually west of the Shannon. So this side of the Shannon, we don't have any of those anyway. So we're not trying to accommodate those guys. Okay. We're trying to accommodate the little crevice roosting guys that crawl in between timbers and stones and blocks and all that sort of stuff. So roosting is that practice, or that what they do during daylight hours. They get into that nice little cozy crevice and they rest effectively. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So when people see those big David Attenborough, when they go to caves in Costa Rica and there's thousands of bats up in the cave, they're essentially roosting till nighttime before they emerge from. So we have that, but maybe sort of less of a spectacle because our bats are quite tiny, in fact.
Okay, right. So then, if they do this, now I've heard of people maybe going into a house that have been unoccupied for a period of time, or they haven't been up in the attic, and they can cause an awful lot of, distress for householders, right? But they are a protected species, and it is important that we do provide these spaces for them. But why do we need to build a roost if they can find naturally occurring spaces?
Yeah, good question. So as you point out, bats have the highest level of EU protection you can get, along with otters and freshwater pearl mussels and stuff like that. So they are on an EU scale like very highly protected, and people do all sorts of illegal stuff they shouldn't. But anyway, we don't need to worry about that. But in Edenderry, essentially, we are building a new library over there. People may know about it, and we procured the old Tesco sites. Excuse me, and when they were doing the work there, the demolition, they did discover bats. And one of the reasons they allowed us to demolish was if we put back an area for bats to roost in. So part of the justification is that this will be a new and permanent site for those bats that we might have sort of disturbed or would go to that old Tesco's building to roost or whatever. Also, in other work there over the years, we have discovered that the area around Edenderry is quite sort of prolific for bats. So being proactive and to tie it in with many actions within the Offaly Biodiversity Action Plan, which we published last year, it ties in with about 8 to 10 of those actions that we provide sort of proactive places, safe and permanent places for bats in the county as well. So we're being proactive as well. And also the funding came available through a novel source that sort of came and went very quickly. And it was described earlier, it was a Sports Ireland grant, actually, not a nature grant or, biodiversity thing. It came from a Animal Quick Spare grant that Sports Ireland were administering during the Greens being in government, where a proportion, 1/3 of this sports upgrade grant had to go towards biodiversity measures. So that allowed allowed me to collaborate with my colleagues in Offaly Sports Partnership. They upgraded an AstroTurf pitch in Edenderry, and then I had 1/3 of the funding to basically put towards a biodiversity project, which we chose the bat roosting structure. So it's basically a block built. What I would say is like a pump house on steroids. People will be familiar with pump houses on, in farms and on the edge of fields where, farmers pump the water to the troughs or whatever. But it's 3 by 3 meter block structure. It's double row of bricks or blocks. There's no insulation in between to allow the bats to roost in there. There's an apex roof, slate roof, and old-fashioned felt, that bitumen felt that people used to use, that old shed felt they call it. And the bats like to roost in there in between the slate and the felt as well, or even between the timbers. So there's lots of things. We got advice from Vincent Wildlife Trust, Bat Conservation Ireland, and a bat expert called Tina Ockley, who told us about all these different design features. And a technician here, Brian, in the council, drew all up the technical specifications. We procured them with a local builder, and a local builder called Alosiri has been building it with his guys over the last couple of weeks. So anyone that knows Blundell Park, just down towards, if they know the Castle Ruins there in the skate park, it's a lovely park, rolls all the way up from the Grand Canal. People will have seen a new structure has appeared there, but just before and over Christmas, and we have this bat roost structure there now. And it, from the outside, it doesn't look anything other than a little sort of shed with a nice roof, and that's all it needs to be really for the bats. And so yeah, it's unique in that it's the first for Offaly, but it's not unique in a national sense.
And are we building these? Okay, yes, it was identified that this area it's quite popular for bats to spend time in. But is there a lack of roosting space for bats? Because I'm imagining in recent years we've been for environmental reasons as well, but also because of the housing crisis, we're encouraging more and more people to bring vacant buildings back into use. Sure. But by doing that, a lot of times inadvertently and very much on purpose, people are excluding bats from their buildings. Sometimes they'll block roofs or patch up roofs and they don't realise there is a bat roost inside, and those bats then no longer have access. So because that is not monitored, there's no database, there's no one actually out there, we actually don't know. So I suppose that's why I keep using the word proactive, because, the bats can't speak for themselves. After various storms over the last few years, a lot of people had the reaction to cut down trees, big old mature trees, before they fell on roads and all that, and well within their rights. But we don't know how many roosts were destroyed because nobody is recording it. So really we can't take the chance and go 20 years time go, oh, damn, we should have been building these roofs all the time. The opportunity arose, the funding was there, so we used it. And I think it's a very good use of the funding and the effort and a local builder and everything else. So we have those skills now within the county that if ecologists or if someone does discover a big bat roost in a building and look, it doesn't suit the use of the building, that we can, build these mitigation structures to allow the bats elsewhere and stuff like that. Because up until now, what we're doing is putting up these small little boxes up trees and stuff, and they're not the best method, to be honest. It's better than nothing, but this permanent sort of safe structure, I think, is pretty robust. It'll be there in 50, 100 years, and that's the sort of approach we've taken here. And tell me then, so if these particular group of is there a collective word for bats?
Yeah, I think it's just bats.
Okay, so we say a collection of bats. If, for instance, in this example, they were living in the old Tesco's in Edenderry, how do you then encourage them into the new? How do they even know it exists? I'm just thinking, and I know that sounds possibly a ridiculous question, but do they just locate it by themselves over a period of time, or can you do anything to encourage them into it?
No, it's a natural thing. They'll find it themselves. So if the building is suitable, they do find them quite quickly. So this actual location we're very careful to where we sited it. So we sited it beside a very mature strip of woodland that runs between the park and a residential area, that runs right down to the Grand Canal, which then runs straight into the wider countryside. So bats are insectivorous, so they're out all night eating the likes of midges and sort of biting insects that are problematic for people. They feed up on those, especially over waterways and over hedgerows and stuff. So they will be naturally commuting along that hedgerow and passing this structure on a sort of nightly basis. So hopefully in the spring and the summer, when bat activity becomes more and more frequent, they will discover the building and move into it over time. And they'll probably only use it in small numbers in the summer, but it'll really be probably a winter roost site where we'll get more and more bats. So, and like I said, there's various options. They can roost in the fascia, they can roost in the roof timbers, there's boxes inside it, they can go into the between the structure of the two walls. Like we've basically thrown the kitchen sink at the design to allow all the options for different species of bats we get here.
And tell me then, like we said that bats do have that very high level of protection. But why do we protect them? Why do we need them as a species?
Yeah, so I mean, like, in their own right, I mean, they've been here millions of years, millennium, and we came around and basically, start dictating things. So on a moral basis alone, we should be protecting these things. But because they're nocturnal, they're not very well understood, they're very difficult to survey and quantify. By that reason, I suppose Europe has taken that sort of that cautious approach that we need to protect species, that we're not, there could be many millions of them, but there are certainly some species that we barely ever come across that we know were more frequent in the past. So it's that sort of approach, it's cautious approach that we're taking, and that's why they're so well protected. And it's because they're so difficult to protect, because carpenters can arrive at a job and have the roof stripped before they realise they've actually unearthed most of that county's population of a particularly highly vulnerable bat species, and then it's too late, the horse is bolted. So we're trying to be particularly cautious how we do that, but a lot of the time it's all inadvertent, so it's very tricky.
And of course we should say, it is a good thing that derelict buildings are being, put back into use and all of that. But of course, Absolutely. We have to be proactive in how we protect.
But it's not mutually exclusive. You can have both, of course. And there's plenty of people, there will be, many people listening that could have bats in their attic and they don't even realise, and it's not till they're alerted to the fact they actually become a little bit sort of itchy and uneasy about the whole thing. But if you don't have a huge bat roost, most of them are quite small. It's only a number of individuals. You'll never notice they're even there. They're not very, noisy. They don't damage the place. It's when you get a big bat roost with where there can be a lot of guano and a lot of moving around, and it's when people sort of start noticing problems. But that is such a rare thing. And there are ways. The MPWS will come out and assess the situation and advise you on how to do that, and that service is free. And they do that proactively, and they try help the building owners around that sort of thing to make sure, I suppose, let people do the right thing.
Yeah, I remember being in an aunt her house at one stage. They live on a farm, and just chatting away, having a cup of tea, and all of a sudden this black thing starts flying in front of me. We all got the fright of our lives, like we'd know. But then again, they were on a farm, outhouses and all of that. It was a time of year when the windows were all open at night, and in comes the bat. But like that. So if you do find something, and particularly actually at this time of year, because a lot of people will be in that new year, let's sort out the house, let's declutter. They might tackle the attic that they've been putting off. So we call the National Parks and Wildlife Service for advice.
Well, I suppose, So absolutely. So if they are causing a nuisance or, a fright or whatever, you can call the MPWS to get advice. If they're not in your way, if they're in outbuildings, if they're just quietly going about their business in, at the end of the attic or I would just leave them be. But otherwise, if it's an issue for you, you should definitely seek advice to the MPWS. And they're not trying to catch you out. They're not going to try, they're there to help. So it's, they're very inactive this time of year. I'd be very surprised, for another couple of months if anyone actually comes across any bats at all.
Okay. But if you do, you don't interfere, get the advice.
Yeah, get the advice, definitely. And what sometimes happens is when they are in the attic or in the walls, they will find their way into the main living space. And often you'll find them in the drapes or behind the couch or whatever, or even a cat might bring them in. And in that case, if they're damaged, they might need to see, a wildlife rehabilitation people or whatever. So it depends on the situation.
Yeah, in this particular instance, it was hiding very snugly behind a curtain, and then the curtain got moved. And so I can totally understand why it would give people a fright, because I've experienced it myself. But like that, we have to be mindful about how we take care of it. And then on that, given that this roost is in a public park and it's in an area where people will be enjoying walks and outdoors, is it something that the public can look at or shouldn't look at? What's the rules around that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So again, for all intents and purposes, you won't notice at all that there, it won't bring extra bats per se, or even to a noticeable level. There are bats foraging over that park every night from sort of mid-March onwards, well into September, October. So, it won't be that suddenly a flock of 1,000 bats going to show up every evening and, there's going to be a spectacle. But definitely at dawn and dusk, as the bats are leaving the roost and as they're gathering to go back to roost at dawn, there will be a little bit more activity in the vicinity of that building, hopefully, if the bats, take up residence, which I'd expect in the next sort of few months, So, yeah, and we will be giving people the opportunity from the likes of Biodiversity Week and Heritage Week. We will certainly be doing bat walks in that area, and it'll definitely be a stopping point and a discussion point along those walks and talks that we'll be doing in the community over the next few months.
And definitely, if there are any would-be photographers or content creators in the area, it might be something that'd be interesting to capture on film or in a video or something along those lines. Well, Ricky, you might come back to us when you're promoting Biodiversity Week and let us know about all the activities that will be happening around the county for that. But thank you very much for talking to us about the new bat roosts in Edenderry.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thanks very much for your time and for joining us on Let's Go Green. After the break, have you ever wondered what happens to my Christmas tree when I drop it off to be recycled? Well, we're going to find out more. Stay tuned to Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103.
Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
You're listening to Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103, and we are returning to the topic of Christmas trees as promised, and we're joined now by sustainability journalist Jo Linehan. Jo, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Jo, I've been through it myself in the last couple of days. I love Christmas. I go mad at Christmas. I collect decorations over the years and they all go out on display, and then there's that awful hassle of taking them all down. And I know it's a total first world problem and all of that. But we're very lucky nowadays in that we can bring our trees to, say, a nearby collection point or the local recycling centre. And then we kind of forget about them. We just dump them. It all looks a bit nice, maybe on the side of the road or at a nearby park. But I was curious as to what happens afterwards, and I thought who better to ask, only Jo Linehan. So Jo, lots of local authorities around the country will have and currently open drop-off points. Now, in my case, I'm very lucky. My estate is next door to the park and that's where the point is. So I had literally, I don't even think it was a 5-minute drive up the road with the tree. Very, very lucky, right? But first things first, how do we find out where that drop-off point is? Where would be a good place to look to get the one for our locality?
Yes, so you're so right. That's your first port of call. And you are so lucky to have it only 2 minutes down the road from you. That's amazing. For other people, it might be a little more of a journey. But essentially, there are local authority sites or bring centres all over the country. And the idea is that you shouldn't be too far from any one point. So every locality should have one. Obviously, for some people, it's going to be a little more of a journey than others. But basically, you can go to mywaste.ie, or you can just Google, where is my local bring centre? Where is my local authority centre? And you will get a list of places. And when you click into that, it will give you an exact location. It will give you opening times. And I would remind people to keep an eye on that, because all of the centres have unusual times. I find the one that's closest to me is open on a Saturday, but it's only open until 12, which is a funny one because you think that Saturday would be a day when people do lots of this. So they all differ time-wise. So do keep an eye on the time and check the official website. Don't trust the Google times. I've fallen for that before. So get onto the actual website, check the times. And at this time of year, they probably will have a section on their homepage that says, bring on your Christmas tree, and you can bring it down. You don't need to break it up or anything. Just take whatever stand it's been on out of it and bring it down, and the team there will help you take it to the next stage.
And a lot of local authorities will also maybe have a dedicated post about it, maybe on their Facebook or Instagram page as well. That's how I found out about the one nearest to me. So, okay, we've done that. We've dropped it off. But then what happens to them? Because they have to be dealt with in some way or other. I saw a video from, I think it was the BBC the other day, where in one part of the UK they're replanted and they kind of create dunes on the seaside out of them, which looks kind of amazing. But what happens to them here?
Wow, that's amazing. And I've actually never heard of that. And I would love to know if that is being tried in any parts of Ireland. I certainly haven't heard about it. As far as I understand, they are taken and they are chopped up or they're created into mulch and then they're used to spread as fertilizer. They're brought back to the forests. So they're recycled really, really sustainably and they're managed responsibly. And I suppose that's the big thing. I think a lot of people will, be tempted to maybe chop it up and throw it into their black bin, or if they have a compost bin, they might be thinking, I'll pop it in here. But I would really say, please don't do that. When you bring it to your local authority centre or your bring centre, they're going to make sure that the absolute best is made of that tree. So it's going to be put back into our environment. It can help nourish other trees. Hopefully it's being replanted like you've seen. I must do a little bit of research on that, but it is going to be managed in the absolute best possible way. And the teams there are experts. They know what they're doing. When they gather them all, there's usually a cut-off date and then they'll recycle them really responsibly, which is fantastic.
So they'll put them through a chipper and then it gets reused for food, for plant life right around that locality, which is great as well. And then I suppose you're right, because traditionally the habit might have been, sure, if I have a trailer, I'll throw it in the trailer and send it out to the landfill, or sure, I'll stick it at the back of the garden and I'll deal with it at some point. And then 6 months down the line, you go, oh God, that's still there, isn't it? We mightn't have had the best of practices in the past around dealing with the Christmas trees.
Yes, and look, some people are really, forward thinking. They might have a really amazing compost patch in their back garden, or they might be living on some land and they think to themselves, you know what, I'm actually just going to leave it out there. It'll decay naturally, it'll go back into the soil. And that's a wonderful idea if you have that opportunity. But I think for most of us who are living in towns or cities, or maybe in small houses with small back gardens, you definitely want to give that to someone who's going to make use of it. So definitely that would be my advice for sure.
And the important thing then is that you do look it up now if you still have the Christmas tree around the house, and that you make sure that it's dropped off at that appropriate location, and it doesn't go into general waste basically.
Totally. And I love your tip of following your local centre once you find it on Facebook or Instagram, because it's such a good reminder. Like, you don't have to be looking for it then. Next year, you'll just be reminded. And there are cut-off dates. I remember from last year, it was around the end of January. And look, everyone's busy in January. Like you said, it could be out in the back garden and you kind of forget about it. So do keep an eye on the cut-off dates. You want to make sure that you get down there before that time.
I recently moved house, but where I used to live, a local group of kids from the local school used to offer a service where they collected them all. They obviously had some parent with a big van, and they did it as a fundraiser for the school. So maybe you paid them a tenner and they took the tree away for you. Which I love to see that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. And it was the local primary school that did it. Like, they weren't even teenagers. I just thought it was a great initiative altogether. Now, Jo, the debate is always, and I know this is like the start of December kind of a conversation, but around whether or not a real tree or a plastic tree is better for the environment. But we also have to be practical and mindful, because at some point the plastic tree will come to the end of its life service. Like, I know I bought one when I moved into a house in 2009. It still gets put up every year in my mum's house. It's still all right. It's still decent. All right. But at some point, like, it's already shedding quite a lot of plastic in the kitchen every Christmas. Like, let's be honest about it. But at some point I will have to deal with it. So what do we do with those plastic trees? How do we dispose of them responsibly?
Oh, you know what? It's a great question. And also, just to pick you up on what you said earlier, which is such a great point, sometimes people invest in their artificial trees at this time of year because they're a lot cheaper. They're in the sales. My friend just moved into her first home and she's just purchased one. So to tackle the debate about what is better in terms of the environment, I have read every study, every comparison report, and honestly, I think it comes down to personal preference. If you're someone who loves the real tree, and if you source that from a local supplier, from a Quilta supported, sustainably, responsibly managed forest, that is fantastic. And then you recycle it at the end of January, that's wonderful. If you're someone like you who's going to really take care of it, put it up every year, maybe get 10, 15, even 20 years out of a really good tree, that's incredible. So I really think it comes down to your personal preference. But as you say, they all come to the end of their life, and the most important thing there is to do do the exact same thing. You bring it to your local authority centre. It obviously won't be going in with the live trees that have been stacked up, but they will take it and they'll make sure that it goes into the right recycling facilities if possible. There might be parts of the tree that can actually be separated and used again, be recycled if there's hard pieces of plastic within it. Things like the very fine pine, little silicone pines that they put on. They won't be, they're just too small, but there might be salvageable parts in it. So bring it to your local centre. For the most part, you shouldn't be charged. There might be a small nominal fee of maybe €2 or €3, if it's something that can't be recycled. But again, they look after it. And it's a really, really good tip. Instead of leaving it up in the attic forever or maybe trying to squash it into your black bin, please just bring it to your local authority. It's a great reminder.
And actually, what you were speaking about there has just reminded me as well that when you do go to the bring centres and the recycling centres, like the staff there are incredibly knowledgeable and helpful. Like, never be afraid to just ask, listen, I'm not sure which bin this goes in, or can I dispose of this here? Because they'll help you out.
They're amazing. The number of times that I've gone down with maybe like a selection of things and someone has come over to me and been like, listen, let me show you where everything goes. Let me help. It's a really great experience. And actually, I find when you go down there, you're reminded of all the things that can be recycled. So I have no doubt people will bring their Christmas tree down and they'll say, oh my God, there's a place there for batteries. There's a place there for small electrics. The Christmas lights that didn't work this year, what was I supposed to do with those? Now I know that they can be recycled there. There's such a great local resource that maybe we don't think about, but well worth visiting and just reminding yourself and asking the team if there is something at home that you just haven't known what to do with.
And actually, you mentioned batteries, and this is a very, very important thing. And if you haven't put your decorations away yet, or if you have, just double check that there's no batteries left in any of these devices, because batteries can leak, and you could have, I may have a Santa talking teddy bear as part of my collection. But I like it. I have it years and years. It still works, but it's only because I take the batteries out each year because, it's got sentimental value. I don't want it to be wrecked, and you don't want it to leak and cause any damage to those decorations, do we?
Such a brilliant tip, and something that people forget about, as you say, in the rush of trying to take everything down and pack everything away. It's something that you might not think of. And again, a reminder, we know that people are still putting a lot of batteries into their black general waste bin. Those can leak, they can contaminate, they can cause fires. They're really, really serious. So again, if you're going down with a Christmas tree, do a little quick whip around the house, find all the batteries that have been used up that you've been putting into drawers and putting under the bed or hiding, and bring those with you too. Such a great reminder.
And actually, as soon as you do mention it, I've seen a lot of fire incidents related to batteries and electric devices at landfill. And even there before Christmas, there was a rubbish truck that went on fire on the M50. And look, investigations have to take place and all of that. But a lot of the time, it's down to us, the public, putting batteries into general waste. That batteries must be brought back individually to be recycled.
Totally. And you're so right. I thought of that the second I saw that awful accident on the M50. I thought, oh my God, what are the chances that is the battery? And look, what I would say is, there's a lot of information out there, and sometimes we just don't know where things go. And maybe out of just laziness or not being sure, we do just say, we'll put it into the back bin and it'll be fine. If you go on to mywaste.ie, there are some brilliant printable posters just to remind you what bin things should go in. They're great to stick up in the fridge. If you've got kids, they're a great kind of way to get them involved. And just remind yourself, we have so many different items in our lives now, it can be hard to know where they go. So having those little reminders and just being a little bit more responsible about it. And look, with things like batteries, no one expects people to be going to the Bring Centre every week. I just have a specific box in my house. Every time I use something up, I keep it there. And then when I go to the Bring Centre every 6-7 months, I know to bring it with me. So it's just putting those little routines in place that make life easier for yourself too.
And let's be honest about it, we all have that drawer of wires we thought we were going to need at some point in the future, and we now don't know what those wires are for. So start of the year, fresh start, bring those batteries back to the Bring Centre and your wires while you're at it. But Jo Linehan, thank you for chatting to us about what happens to our Christmas tree when it's being recycled. And please do make sure that whether you've got a real Christmas tree or a plastic one, that you are bringing it to the correct spot so that it can be recycled properly this January. Jo Linehan, sustainability journalist, thank you very much for joining us on Let's Go Green.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We'll be back after the break.
Let's Go Green, sponsored by AirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
You're listening to Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103, and I'm joined by, and a very happy new year to Pat Kane of Reuzi. Pat, you are very welcome back to the programme.
Thank you for having me. Happy New Year.
Now, Pat, I know that we speak to you on the show on a fairly regular basis, on and off over the course of the year, but our listeners might recall that in or around this time last year, we had a chat about Project Pan, and I thought it might be time to look back at our cosmetics and toiletry drawers and all that lovely plastic that we seem to have a habit of collecting. But first things first, what exactly is Project Pan?
Fair enough. So Project Pan is a personal challenge, very popular in the makeup and skincare community, where you as a consumer, you commit to using up, so hitting the pan, the metal pan of products you already own, instead of constantly buying new ones, as tempting as it sounds or it feels, I guess. So the idea is really to reduce that overbuying. The idea here is to save money. Who doesn't want that? To try and, help us appreciate what we already have. And I suppose be happy, create more mindful consumption habits, and just be happy with what we have, which is not little. Right? I'd say most of us feel like getting another lip balm, another perfume, cologne, or, and we go and get. Yeah. So I feel like there's room for improvement there for everybody. Included.
Absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, what we have to remember is that every time we buy, whether it's a new lipstick or foundation or even shower gel, it's all, generally speaking, virgin plastic. It's brand new plastic, more pollution into the environment. And then adding, piling them up in our drawers isn't really responsible either. And I suppose there is a big concern around the social media generation and the amount of youngsters, young girls in particular, that are now convinced that they need skincare when, it's at the one point in your life where all you should be putting on your skin is SPF.
Exactly.
And that's creating an awful lot more stuff being produced.
Yeah, a lot. Because obviously as a consumer, you're starting earlier. You're not waiting till you make a bit of money when you're 14, 15, 16 and beyond. You're starting at 10. So, the industry, the beauty industry, they got younger consumers, and obviously as a whole humanity, we got more waste being produced. So it is a shame. And I feel like, obviously for young generations, young kids, as you said, SPF, that's the job, and that is that. But for anyone out there who enjoys a bit of skincare, a bit of makeup or hair care, I'm always saying it's not about not buying the bits you want, and it's not about not enjoying, the fruits of your hard-earned money and your work. It's absolutely not that. It's just being that little bit extra conscious, when out there shopping for stuff that you actually need, toilet paper or shampoo or whatever it is. It's not to try to avoid falling for those, I suppose, traps, the new and shiny stuff that is calling you, try me. And you're like, ooh, I heard of that on social media, or someone told me about that. Before all of those things, ask yourself, do I actually need one more of whatever it is that you're looking for, or looking at, as a matter of fact.
And I think as well, I avoided TikTok for a very, very long time. And then about 18 months ago, I joined, and I'm probably addicted to it. I quite enjoy it. But I do find, and it's because of how I'm interacting with the algorithm, I've created this problem myself. I hold my hands up. But because I enjoy skincare, I am getting a lot of, you can buy this, and you've got that little yellow basket, and your thumb goes there, and before you know it, something arrives in the post and you can't quite remember having it bought. We need to, it's like when we're going out to do the groceries when we talk about food waste with Yvonne Carty here on the show of Hey Pesto quite a lot. And Yvonne will always say, don't go to the supermarket when you're hungry and always shop the fridge first. Like, we need to shop the makeup drawer first, don't we?
Absolutely. I feel like, if we were to get really practical, you could just go onto these, okay, fine. As you said, I'm going to shop my bathroom press. I'm going to check my drawers first. This is it. No negotiable. There will come times where you're going to find yourself looking for something that you actually don't have. And fair enough. When it comes to that, my preference would always be to research the brand, see if it's a brand that aligns with your values. In Ireland, give or take, we have 40 to 60 active brands, like big brands. And then you have tons of smaller brands, right? And out of those, there are brands doing really great work, going above and beyond to deliver a more conscious, sustainable product, packaging, ingredients, and so on. And there are some others that are just churning out stuff, and that, I suppose, the planet and people are not necessarily their goal. They're the center of what everything they do. So what I would say is, if you need something, do a bit of research. But if you do feel like jumping onto, on the Project Pan bandwagon, I guess, it's simple, and you can even give yourself a very short-term target, which is, for example, we do dry January. How about you do a no cosmetics, skincare, hair care, makeup by January? Yeah. Okay. So, and if you feel like you got by and you missed absolutely nothing, as a matter of fact, you saved money, how about you push that to then the first quarter of the year? So between January and March, you're not going to buy anything new when it comes to skincare or makeup or whatever it is. And if you feel like that was so easy because you still have so much in the house, I bet there are people out there that have so much, stock and stuff that they haven't even opened, that they will get to March with like plenty, stretch that a little bit more. Maybe I'm going to summer. And then when it comes to summer, I get it. It's warmer. I need SPF. I need something that's a bit different from what I was wearing during the winter. Then go for it, But try and establish a few targets instead of like going cold turkey, because that will eventually fail.
And that's a really good idea. Like, start off with like not buying cosmetics in January. See how you go, how much more money you have in the bank account at the end of the month as opposed to what you'd normally have spent on toiletries. And that whole thing, like, I know, so I have in my bathroom, I have 2 drawers. I have one for my daily cosmetics that I use every day and I know where everything is. And then there's the drawer that maybe if there's a special offer on, say, a deodorant or a shower gel that I know I'm using all the time, that I have my extras. But I've made the mistake of forgetting that I had the spares in that drawer, and I've gone out and I've bought it again, and I've been kicking myself, So, and like you see, like, and the wonderful thing I think about Project Pan from a social media perspective is I have seen people take out all their toiletries and put them up on their bed and photograph them and say, right, I'm not buying anything until that pile's empty. I'm going to use everything and then I can go shopping again. But I think the actual exercise of taking them all out of the drawer or out of the cupboard or wherever they are, or the makeup bag, it makes you realize just how much stuff you have that you're not actually using.
Exactly. Yeah, I think an audit, in essence, what you're saying is like audit what you have, isn't it? Go through your drawers and just put everything on the bed. Great idea, and figure it out. Are there any gaps there? Are there things that, regardless of Project Pan or not, you need to replace? For instance, as you said, deodorant, like, you don't want to be for 6 months without deodorant just because you're doing it. I don't advise that. I don't endorse that message.
Personal hygiene is very important.
It's very important. We're not talking about that kind of thing. So, do your little audit, run that and see where are the gaps. And the gaps can absolutely be filled if you feel like you're gonna need certain things that are not quite there. And for the rest, use what you have.
And then there will be, Like, say, for instance, you might have a pack of eyeshadow that you bought to go with a particular outfit for a wedding. And, you know, can I still use it? Is it still safe to use? Like, I know I have a blusher that I love from an Irish brand and I use it every single day. And yet I'm not getting to the bottom of the pan. Like, I obviously am not using all that much of it. But like, do we need to be careful that like everything is still, well, hygienic, basically, that that they're not dirty products?
Course, yeah. And that, and there you will have tips are clean your brushes, make sure that you have hands clean when you're applying your makeup so you're not contaminating anything. There are companies in Ireland like the Brush Dock, for example. It's a lovely little machine, and also soap for brushes specifically helps you sanitize and make sure everything's hygienic and proper. So absolutely be careful with that sort of thing, and keep an eye on expiry dates. Why not? As you said there, if you bought something for a wedding last year, does it say 12 months at the back of the packaging? Because if it does, you better follow that. You don't want to cause yourself any problems, I suppose. Yeah. So any skin irritations and whatnot. So I suppose it's just those little reminders that sometimes, because life is so fast paced, we forget. And then when we find ourselves with a bunch of stuff there, stuff that probably expired and you shouldn't be using, just taking that step back and being like, do I need this stuff? And do I need to replace this stuff? As gorgeous as it looks, a gold glitter eyeshadow, you're not going to be using that every day. Certainly not in my line of work, So what do you actually need? Concentrate on those. Make sure you wear what you have. And then when they're done, you replace. Again, we're not by no means, encouraging people to get rid of stuff they don't use.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That would be very unsustainable, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
What we're encouraging people is to really, going forward, make sure that what you're buying, you buy with intention. Yeah. And a purpose. So it fits in your life rather than just a point in time and never again.
And then, as you say, Project Pan is about, using the product till you hit the pan, because an awful lot of cosmetic products have those metal pans in them. But what happens then, or what should we do then when we do hit the pan, when the tube of foundation is finished, or, the blush, I do eventually get to the pan on the blusher, because we need to dispose of them responsibly as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So some Irish brands, and I'll use Sculpted by Amy, for example, they have their own return program, like, bring it back, and they give you points. The more empties you bring back to the shop or you post back to Sculpted, you get points, and you get discounts or whatever it is, free products. You need to check that. Some pharmacies out there, I know Boots have a big, kind of like a big box, cardboard box for their recycling program. So you can bring your empty aerosols and that sort of jazz as well, shampoo bottles, whatever it is. Certain things are recyclable at home.
Okay.
Yeah. So in your household, like you have a recycling bin. So, a shampoo bottle made from like just the regular plastic, anything that's made from cardboard and it's clean, anything that's made from metal. And once again, it's clean, that can go into your recycling bin. So your paper and your cardboard, your plastic, soft or hard plastics, your tins and cans, I don't know if it applies much to makeup, but still, like, you get the idea. Metal, those things can be recycled. And then you have glass. Glass can be recycled once empty and clean as well, and dry, in a different bin, of course, or directly at the recycling center, but you can bring. If ever in doubt, my advice is contact your recycling provider. Yeah, the company that collects your rubbish, or else, contact the manufacturer, contact the brand, and most brands nowadays, they will have instructions, if not on the packaging, on their website.
Yeah.
So worth having a look. But again, if it's not clear, get in touch with them on social media. That's the beauty of, the advent of social media.
It is actually, yeah.
Is that brands, they have very little, they have nowhere to hide. So we, as consumers, we can reach out and we can ask the questions.
Well, Pat Kane of Reuzi, thank you so much for joining us to discuss Project Pan. I will be back on the bandwagon again this year. I think I did quite well last year, so I'm going to keep at it. And again, like Pat says, and like I do the recycling programs for the cosmetics because they are hard to clean. You know, they're really hard to clean. So if you have somebody who's willing to actually go and do that work for you, then why not? So a Project Pan, if you want to look it up, but Pat Kane of Reuzi, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
We'll be back after the break.
Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
You're listening to Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103. Now, I know that the media has been full of the Mercosur trade deal in recent days and Ireland's last minute, could I say, decision on Thursday to vote against it. The programme, of course, or the scheme, the trade agreement was in the works for 25 years and was voted in favour of, generally speaking, by 65% of the representatives at the EU level on Friday. It is something that we will come back to, but a lot of the conversation in Irish media has been around beef and the fact that this deal, if it goes ahead, will allow Central American beef into Europe and that could have a negative impact for beef farmers in Europe and, of course, here in Ireland. But then on the other side of things, the allegation is that we are a country that relies heavily on exports and that this will be a good deal for those who are in exportation, from pharmaceuticals to dairy farmers, because our dairy products are sold around the globe and so are the pharmaceuticals, and that these will open up new markets. But I just thought it might be opportune to point out the concerns of environmentalists around it. So the concern is that if the deal is implemented, it will lead to deforestation in the likes of Brazil and other Mercosur countries, because they will need to clear land to be able to farm the likes of beef and soy and other commodities that are going to be sold into Europe under this trade deal. Now, the whole point of this is to open up markets beyond the United States for Europe and for Central American countries. And while this has been in the works for the past 25 years, the current US president's stance on global trade has definitely spurred it on. So there is a concern that under Mercosur, that deforestation will rise by at least 5% per year if the agreement is implemented, and therefore that would destroy habitats and put thousands of species under risk and under threat. And that's why environmentalists have been campaigning against it. But despite the vote on Friday, there's still actually more votes and more negotiations to come in relation to Mercosur. So it's not been implemented just yet, and it is something that is making its way through the European Parliament as we speak, and it is something that we will come back to here on Let's Go Green. Just a reminder as well, if there is a topic that you would like us to discuss here on the programme, if there is an environmental issue that perhaps you and your community are involved in that you'd like us to raise awareness around or give you an audio pat on the back, please do get in contact with me. You can email directly on hello@thecommunicationscoach.ie. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm at Aisling O'Rourke, or indeed through midlands103.com. If you'd like me to get a problem that you've been facing, an answer to it, a question that's been burning that you'd like us to get an expert onto the show to discuss it with us, please do get in contact with us and we can see what we can do. And of course, just like every other week, I have to let you know that we are available as a podcast. So if perhaps you want to listen back to apart from this week's show, or maybe you missed last week's episode with Zoe, you can go to your preferred podcast app, whether that's Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or even Midlands103.com. And you can listen back to each and every one of our shows there. I hope you have a good week. I hope you're looking forward to 2026. I won't lie, I found last week getting back into the routine really hard. I know I was only out of action routine-wise for 2 weeks, but it felt like, a lifetime. But now that we are back into the routine, I hope that you are looking forward to the year ahead and have some, not resolutions, I don't do resolutions, but that you've set some lovely goals for yourself for the year ahead. I know it's something that I'm going to be working on over the next couple of days. But for now, stay safe, have a great week, and I'll be back same time next week here on Let's Go Green on Midlands 103.
Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.